All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show where we really just walk through the game plan. We talk through these games. We talk through who we like, guys we want to go over on, guys we're not as excited about, and really just try to make sure everyone's good to go for this slate. And then, of course, pre-lock show, 5:30 p.m., me and Brandon right back at it. We will show exactly what we're doing in the domination station, what we're doing in the optimizer. We'll talk through leverage plays, core plays, the entire game plan. But anyway, how are you doing, Brandon? How are you feeling about life?
Doing pretty good. Don't want to talk about last night too much. So definitely ready to move on. Giant slate tonight, so definitely ready to start digging in, see what we got.
Yeah, the tournament itself, good. I mean, the blowout last night wasn't as great, but I am looking forward to the game tomorrow. Like, that is actually going to be a really fun game, I think. So, might play a showdown, maybe.
Question mark.
Maybe. I don't know. I like basketball, but I like it even more when I'm gambling on it a little bit.
Yep.
So, anyway, let's dig into this slate. Too many games. We don't have time to waste. The first game is probably one of my favorite games on the slate, but it's nobody else's. I haven't heard anyone talk about the Raptors today, but I like them a good bit. They're going up against the Charlotte Hornets, a team that we pick on all the time. The game total is relatively low at 223 and a half. What are you doing with the Raptors today, Brandon?
So I know we're both always on the same page with two of these guys, and don't think it's going to be any different tonight. So two people that jump out the most. First is Siakam and Podol. They're both. It's like they don't. DK never raises their price. They're always around this price range, and this matchup is golden for both of them. So I would assume ownership on both of them will be pretty low. So I think it's safe to say that they're both going to be leverage plays for both of us tonight. So they're definitely my favorite two on this team. And then I know I usually am the only one who likes Schroeder, but if DS gives me any of him, I'll be completely fine with him because he's still a good price tag, and you can attack the guard position on this team as well. So I think this is a game where Schroeder can pop off. And then same with OG, he's a little more inconsistent, but if he shows up, I'll be fine with that too. He coming off a smash game too, which is something I don't want to chase. But like I said, if he shows up in the mix, I'll let it ride with him in this matchup.
Yeah, I am right there with you when it comes to Siakam and Jakob Poeltl. And like you mentioned, they should be pretty low owned today. But honestly, I do not care. I'm going to be very aggressive. I am 150 maxing, so I don't have to be as aggressive as I usually am when I 20 max, but I'm going to be. I'm going to be very over the field on Siakam and Jakob Poeltl. And like you mentioned, with Dennis Schroeder, I'm not usually someone who gets overly excited about him, but I do like this soft matchup. The spread's only at 5, so I'm not overly concerned about a blowout here. And I am getting in my early runs, which we all know, large slate, things will change dramatically here. He is showing up a little bit. So Schroeder's someone that I'm okay having exposure to. What are your thoughts on Scotty Barnes here?
I was giving him some thought, but then I was comparing him to other guys in his price range, and I just like other guys more than him, so he won't be a priority. If I get a little bit of it, cool. If not, then I won't sweat it too much.
Yeah, I agree with that thought process, but really like Jakob Poeltl and Siakam today here. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets. Mark Williams is questionable. That's really the only piece of injury news that we have to look at or be concerned about with the Hornets. Are any of these guys on your radar tonight?
Rozier is kind of the only one for me I like the most. Without Ball, he always looks like a good play to me. 8,400. He did see a price increase, but I still think that's in the realm of him paying off. So I don't mind getting to him. Brandon Miller is a guy I always go back and forth on. I like him more if Mark Williams is out, of course, because I think that does help his upside a little bit, especially with like rebounds. So if Mark is out, I wouldn't mind getting to some of Brandon, especially with the minutes he should play. And then Bridges, I think you can make a case for too, but just not a huge fan of that 7,900 price tag. I rather get to Siakam on the other side, 200 more. So probably won't have any Bridges. And then if Mark is out, you can make a case for Nick Richards too, but he got a nice pay bump too. So 4,900 for him, not something I'm feeling too good about.
Yeah, I agree with that. Michael Ortiz, hope you're doing well. Good morning to you all. Cohiba, same thing. Kenny, you're saying Miller time. I'm not sure if you mean like the beer Miller Light or if you're a big fan of Brandon Miller in this game. It could go either way. And I wouldn't say you're wrong. I like Miller Light. So either way, good luck. Let's go. It's showtime. Mo, I appreciate the support. Personally, I am feeling a good bit better. Still a little congested. And those of you who saw the pre-lock show yesterday, I had a good coughing spell there for a good bit. But all in all, I'm looking up. Thomas Dye, hope you're doing well as well. Good to see you all here. Appreciate the support per usual. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out a lot. Looking back at this game, I like Terry tonight. The hard part is there's 13 games on this slate. And so I think there's a pretty high chance there will be other guards that are in more beneficial situations once we get more injury news on this slate. So game, if the slate ended or started right now, Terry Rozier would be in my lineups. But by the time we get to the pre-lock show and by the time we get to lock, it wouldn't shock me if he's no longer really on my radar because of the news that might develop there. So keep an eye out for the Hornets tonight. Brandon Miller at 5,900, decent mid-range value, like you mentioned, Brandon. I'm comfortable with him being in my mix, but I'm not going to make him a priority. I'm not going to force him in or anything like that. And the same thing goes for the rest of the Hornets. I'm really only looking at Terry. I'm not overly excited about anybody else here. Next up, we have the Pistons, a team that has been a little crazy this season, a lot of moving pieces. Joe Harris is questionable. That would just make things even worse if he ends up playing tonight. What are you doing with the Pistons here?
This team is so bad. It's just hard to target. If I were to play anybody on this team, it would be Cade and Bohan. Cade has been in fairly decent form as of late. So if he shows up a little bit, I'll be fine with that. And we saw what Bohan can do last game. I wouldn't mind getting to him either. And then I think you can make a case for Stewart. I think they just start him at center with Duren out. But I just like the center position so much tonight. It's going to be hard to make him a priority. So I'd say if anybody, Cade and Bohan for sure would be the two guys here. Everybody else would be really hard to get to.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cade's fine and viable, but just like I mentioned with Terry, I think there will be better guard plays on the slate. I would still prioritize Terry over Cade in this spot. Magic have been playing pretty well defensively this season, so not a team I'm overly excited to play guys against. I agree Bogdanovich is a solid staple for the Pistons. They're giving him plenty of minutes, which is not something we can say about a lot of the guys on this team. And he's been in good form here. So I am fine with Bogdanovich showing up in my lineups. But again, just not a guy I'm going to try to force exposure to. I do think Isaiah Stewart could be a little sneaky. We definitely know he does provide some decent upside. But again, even with Wendell Carter Jr. out, the Magic just haven't really been giving up too many points to the center position here lately. So hard to get super excited about it. Anyone else you want to touch on?
No, the rest of this team is pretty ugly.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the game total, it's decent at 229, but the spread is 11.5, and that's just not something I'm excited about. What about the other side of the game, though, the Magic? Are you more excited about any of these guys?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Paolo, of course, sticks out the most. He has the highest upside on this team, and a guy I definitely will have a decent chunk of tonight. 8,300 is a pretty good price for what he can do. Franz is next. I wish he was a bit cheaper. 7,900 I feel like is a little too high. I know the weight he's been pretty solid as of late too, so he's priced where he should be. I just wish he was kind of a little closer to 7K, but I'm sure I'll have some of Franz as well. And then Same with Cole. I wish he was a bit cheaper as well, but he's been in great form. So those three guys will be kind of the main priorities for me. And I think I'll even have a little bit of Gary Harris in the mix too, because value isn't that great so far tonight. So as of now, Gary Harris is just kind of showing up.
Yep. Once again, we're on the same page here. I have a like on Gary Harris right now, really just so I don't forget about him. Gary Harris, especially if Jalen Suggs is out, and Jonathan Isaac is already listed as out for injury news. But I would expect Gary Harris to move into the starting lineup with Suggs out. And in that case, I think Gary Harris would be one of the stronger value plays on the slate just because he's shown he has some ceiling and upside in these spots. So I like Gary Harris here. But again, if we get more value at the position, I don't like Gary Harris so much where I feel like I need to make him a priority by any means. I agree. I like Paolo. Paolo, for me, is someone I want exposure to tonight, but not someone I want to be a core player or anything like that, just because he can be a bit volatile. But this is a really good spot for him. Franz, I'll just get however much the domination station gives me. I don't feel overly passionate about him. Anyone else you want to highlight here?
Not for me.
All right. Next up, we have the game of the day that everyone is talking about. If you didn't know, Trae Young is currently listed as questionable. Trae Young has only missed one game this season. I feel like he's missed more for some reason. I don't know. Last year, I had a really bad reputation for giving Trae Young a hard time. I don't dislike Trae Young anymore. I think it's just something going on. Who knows? But he's questionable. If he's out, that's a boost to the entire Hawks team. DeJounte Murray is someone that people would definitely have a lot of exposure to. But when it comes to usage rates themselves, AJ Griffin actually sees the highest increase in usage alongside DeAndre Hunter and Sadiq Bey. So those are guys that I would definitely want to make sure I have a bit more exposure to in the event that Trae Young actually ends up missing this game. But with that being said, what are you doing with the Hawks right now?
So, of course, it depends on what happens with Trae. I'll say if things stand as they do now, it will be a little harder to get to most of these guys. So right now, Capella and Okongwu are the two that stand out the most to me just because they have really nice price tags. Chalky Capella always worries me a little bit, especially with the way they split him and Okongwu kind of like right down the middle. So I'm not sure I want him as a core play, but I'll be fine at least being around Phil Wade there. And then same with Okongwu. I'll be okay being around Phil Wade on him just because 4,900, he's going to be a nice line filler as of now. Yeah. And then, like I said, if Trae plays, it's going to be hard to get to some of these other guys. Everybody's kind of priced appropriately, so it's kind of hard to get too excited. But, of course, if Trae is out, then my top priority would be DeJounte Murray. Of course, I would imagine he'd bump up into a core play, and then I'll have a decent amount of Bog as well. He would be a top priority for me as well.
Yeah, I think for me, if Trae Young plays, I'm not really interested in this team. I'll be honest. I'll have some Clint Capella exposure, but I'll be under the field. I'll have a Congo exposure, probably around field weight or over, just because I like his price tag. But I won't have a lot of interest. If Trae Young is out, just like you mentioned, Murray, Bogdanovich, Bey are all going to be focal points that I'm looking to build around. After the last few weeks, I refuse to allow Clint Capella to be a core play for me. Well, Okongwu is still in the mix. It's just not going to happen anymore. But he is still priced decently for the upside he brings to the table. But I'm not the biggest fan of it. I'll probably just be around field weight unless Young is out, and then I'll be a little bit more excited about it. But still don't love it. Anyone else you want to touch on here?
Nope. Like I said, depending on that Trae news, I can't really get to too many people here.
Okay. Yeah. A big wait-and-see game, but probably the biggest, most important news on the slate today.
Yeah. Luckily, that's at 7 o'clock, too, so we'll have it before lock, thank God.
Hopefully, we get it even before the pre-lock show. That would be nice and smooth so we can have everything together. If not, it will just be one of those days we're trying to figure it all out live. But outside of that, we have the Sixers going up against the Hawks. Nice matchup for Embiid here, but he's pricey at 11,700. What are you doing with the Sixers?
This is going to be another team that's pretty hard to get to. Everybody's priced up where they should be, and Oubre is back in the mix as well. I will say I'm probably going to put him in percent on Embiid. I know he's pricey, but this is the highest total on the slate, and Embiid is in amazing form right now. So I think this is another easy, like 60 to 70 point game for him. So not sure if I want to make him a leverage play and double the field on it, which isn't bad at 6%, but I know I at least have field weight, if not maybe like 10% or something like that. So
Yeah,
he's kind of the only guy I want to make sure I get to here.
I'm right there with you. It feels so weird that Maxey is still 9,300. Like, it's just, I get it. He had some really strong 50-point games. He had the 60, 70-point games against Indiana, but we've seen a lot of guys do stuff like that against the Pacers at this point. His price tag needs to go lower. With that said, he does still have some upside in this really nice matchup at low ownership. It's just really hard to imagine other guards not surpassing him from a value perspective on a 13-game slate. Like we keep talking about, if Trae Young ends up playing, I'll be interested in probably being around field weight on Maxey. I do want some exposure here, but if Trae ends up playing, I don't think I'll take that shot. And then Embiid, like you mentioned, we have to see how lineups actually look with Embiid with the news we have later on today, but I do plan on having at least a min to be around field weight or get a little bit of leverage there. So really good spot. Just have to make sure we can build lineups that aren't too crazy with him in it, but fantastic play. Next up, we have another game I like. It's like I told Brandon before the show, I'm going to know how I'm doing from a DFS standpoint very early tonight. So either I'll be having a great night because of DFS or I'll be having a great night because I'll be out and about and intoxicated. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, for the Wizards, they're going up against the Nets. The Wizards are bad, but they're pretty healthy outside of Daniel Gafford, who's listed as questionable, which does matter a good bit for this team. I mean, arguably it matters more for the Nets, but anyway, what are you doing with the Wizards here, Brandon?
I did see Gafford was present and shoot around, so I'm going to lean to him playing tonight. So he's probably my favorite piece on this team, 5,400. He's going to look good at that price.
Mm-hmm.
Tyus, I've been going back and forth on. He's definitely been looking better the last couple games. But depending on how the rest of the day plays out, I'm not sure I'm going to force him in and make him a priority. So if he shows up in the mix, I'll be fine with it. And then Kuz, you can always make a case for. He has the highest upside on the team. But same thing with him. I don't think I'll force him in. And then two other guys that I think will be in the mix as of now, because like I mentioned, value isn't that great. So as of now, they're kind of in my mix, and that's Kispert and Gallinari. So I don't mind getting to those two as value pieces.
Yeah. Not guys I would like force in, but I think you'll just get those guys naturally because we're kind of lacking value at this point. So I don't disagree with that. If the DS gives me guys like Kispert and Gallinari, I just won't fight it too much. But again, not guys I'll have probably 50% or more of.
Wow. Not to cut you off, but Trae Young was just ruled out. So
nice. Good.
King of the devil.
Plenty of time. We have decent value now. We know we're playing Murray. That pretty much locks up the vast majority of our guard spots. So things are looking pretty bright right now. Gafford, I am comfortable with. I like Gafford, but I think there's another pivot at lower ownership in this game that I like more that we'll talk about on the Nets side of it. But Gafford's been in good form, surprisingly, here lately. He's been doing well. He's had some high-scoring games. So he's really the only Wizards player I'm looking at to play and be excited about. Outside of that, I only like playing Poole, Kuzma, Avdia in very, very, very plus matchups for them. And so they're not guys I'm looking to prioritize outside of Gafford. When it comes to the Nets, I like Nick Claxton. It's like I said, we can play bigs against the Wizards, and I like that he's half the ownership that Gafford is at similar upside for me. So he is a little bit more expensive, and so that does speak to why he is lower owned. But I think Nick Claxton can dominate this spot in this matchup, and so I like this spot for him here. Any other nets you're on today?
Yeah, Cameron Johnson too. I at least want to make sure I'm at fill weight with him. He's one of the more consistent guys on this team, and 6,500 is still a decent price tag for him.
Yeah, I don't hate that. If he shows up naturally for me, I'm cool with it, but he's not one of those guys I think I'll force too much of today. Next up, we have the Knicks against the Celtics. Knicks are pretty healthy. Not really much else to say about them. They're going up against the Celtics, a pretty solid defense. I don't foresee myself getting here. I like different guys at these guys' price range across the board. Are you on any of the Celtics or Knicks here?
No, this game as a whole is going to be tough to target. If I had to play anybody, it would be Randall. He's just been in great form, and 8,700 is still good for what he's been doing, but just not something I can force tonight. So probably going to be a team I skip over.
Yeah. Don't foresee myself going there. And then for the Celtics, it looks like Porzingis is going to be back. So that's interesting. And Porzingis has already had some strong performances against the Celtics this season. I still don't think I'm playing any of these guys either. Are you?
No, another team I skipped right over. There's other guys in these price ranges that are in a way better spots. So
yeah. I mean, I think you can always make a case for Tatum, but even there, I don't plan on going there personally.
There's a stud the same exact price of him that I like way more than him too, which we'll get to later. So,
all right. What about for the Cavs? It looks like they are also a team that's relatively healthy tonight. Evan Mobley is questionable, so that does matter a good bit here. And Karis LeVert is out, but outside of that, looking pretty healthy. Are you interested in any of the Cavs?
Yeah, I think I did see Mobley didn't show up to shoot around, so not looking too good for him. So if he's out, that's going to boost Jared Allen a bit more for me, and I'd be more willing to make sure I have some of him. Donovan Mitchell, 9K, that is insanely cheap for him. Typically don't like to pick on Miami, but if his ownership stays this low, he's probably going to be a leverage play for me because I think he's going to smash not that 9K price tag tonight. So I want to be over the field on him. And then I guess the rest depends on if Mobley is out. You could maybe make a case for Nang at 4K. He'd be a little more viable, and even Strus, I wouldn't mind having some of. So these other guys, I guess, will just kind of depend on that Mobley news. But Mitchell, as of now, is the one who stands out the most to me.
Yeah, I like Mitchell too. I'll let you have him as a leverage play. I don't foresee myself forcing exposure to Donovan Mitchell, but I'm hoping it happens naturally just because I like his price tag more than anything. The matchup is fine. If Evan Mobley's out, the guy who actually sees the highest increase in usage is Kyle Lowry, which is interesting. Oh, sorry, I'm blanking. That's not right. If Evan Mobley is out, the guy who actually sees the highest usage is Jared Allen, and he also sees, and then of course Donovan Mitchell sees a nice increase too. And so that will increase my exposure to Jared Allen if we get that news that Evan Mobley's out. I just like the nice matchup. I like making sure I have exposure to a 6,500 guy and Jared Allen. And then Donovan Mitchell getting that boost. I'm interested to see if his ownership increases if Mobley ends up being out. So we'll see. I'm going to keep a close eye out on that. And then I'm not really trying to force exposure to this game just because I don't love picking on the Heat like you mentioned. Mo said, do we just fade that game then? Knicks Celtics. I'm not going to go out of my way to fade it, but so I'm not going to X the game out completely in the DS, but I don't plan on playing guys from that game. So short answer, yes.
No one should be popping from that game really anyways. Like I'd be surprised if the DS gave you anybody there.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate you, Dave. Always appreciate the support. Moving on. For the Heat. Looks like, let's see, any injury news for them? Bam is out. That's a pretty big deal. Highsmith is out. Still a big deal. Duncan Robinson is probable. Or any of these guys standing out for you, though?
Orlando is a little bit. I wish he was a bit cheaper, but bigs against Cavs has been a trend, and it's going to be an even better spot if Mobley is out for him. So he'd be one guy I wouldn't mind getting to. Caleb Martin, I'll let the field chase him. I know he had a smash game last time out, but 5,900, that's a easy fade for me, I think.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the team is everybody's just kind of priced up, and they're going to be hard to get to. And Cavs is another team outside of the center spot. They're a team I don't like to target too much.
Yeah. Speaking of usage rates, when Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and Highsmith are out, Kyle Lowry actually sees the highest increase in usage. Then it's Duncan Robinson. With that being said, I think Orlando Robinson is interesting. Like I said, I really like Jakob Poeltl today and some of the other bigs we talked about in the earlier games. So that's really what I'm prioritizing. Outside of that, I'm letting the domination station really control my exposures. So if Orlando pops in there, that's fine. I'm not going to try to avoid him, but he's not someone I'm going to force exposure to like I'm doing with some of the other guys in the early games. And then I agree with you. I'm not trying to chase Caleb Martin. And again, I don't like to pick on the Cavs. So this just isn't a team I'm planning on having much exposure to in general tonight. We have another game that's not super exciting. We have the Timberwolves going up against the Grizzlies. For the Timberwolves, Jaden McDaniels is out. There's not really any real injury news here. Rudy Gobert is still relatively cheap for the production he's been having recently. But are you playing any of the Timberwolves here?
This game is probably the grossest one on the slate. So this is another team I just kind of skipped by.
Yep, I don't disagree. I mean, we know the Grizzlies aren't a great defense, but there's nothing really standing out here for these guys from the other games we talked about earlier that I like more. So don't foresee myself going here. I was looking at Anthony Edwards because I thought he could be interesting on this slate, but there's just better guys. That's the hard part about 13 gamers is there's just better guys across the board. For the Grizzlies, we've seen some of these guys get hot here recently. No real injury news that matters. Are you playing any of these guys?
Nope. Another team I skipped right past. You can always make a case for Bane, but 9,200, I just think there's better plays out there.
Yep, I agree. And even JJJ used to be my guy, but not anymore.
Nope.
Sad times. Dixon, what's up, man? Did you see the interview of Ingram and Zion? Yeah, you know, those guys, they're always tripping. I saw a video of them talking about what they would do if they won the money, and they gave each other a look, and I think we all know what was going through their brain during that period of time. Jeremy could be a blowout. Yeah, I mean, a lot of like these games, these three games right here are just gross, and they're just not games I'm looking to target too much. Things get a little bit better towards the end, but I'm really focusing on the first four games, to be honest. Next up, we have the Golden State Warriors against the Thunder. Warriors are healthy. I am going to be over the field on Curry. I just like his upside. I like the total of this game. It's pretty high at 236. So Curry, per usual, will be one of my leverage plays. I can almost guarantee that just because he's going to be at next to zero ownership. Outside of that, I'm not planning on playing any of the Warriors. Are you?
Yeah, I was going to say I'll probably have like a 5% man on Curry. That's about it for this team.
Yep, it's Curry and nobody else, at least for me. All right, for the Thunder, another team that's pretty healthy. The Thunder can be exciting. They have upside. They've shown that throughout the season, though. Looks like Jalen Williams is getting decent ownership currently. Are you playing any of the Thunder, Brandon?
I thought I would like this game as a whole more when I first saw it on the slate, but as I dug into it on both sides, it's just not that exciting. Like I think SGA could be an interesting play, but like I said, there's another stud in this 10K range that I like more than him. But at 2% ownership, I think he's worth a shot. And then Jalen is somebody where if he shows up, I'll be fine with him in the mix, but not going to force him in. And that Williams chalk is a little gross too, but I get it. He's 3,200, and people are kind of reaching for value, so that's definitely not something I'm going to force either.
Yeah, I need to double check Bay and his position eligibility. Yeah, I prefer Bay over Williams, so that's just not going to be where I go personally. But I think Chet is a realistic option at 7,700 against the Warriors. I do typically like to play bigs against the Warriors, so he's fine. He did put up a 60-point performance against them earlier this season, so he's someone that will be a pretty easy leverage play for me today, and he's really the only guy I'll be playing from the Thunder. I don't like Williams. Like you keep mentioning, there's a guard I like way more. It's in the 10K range who I will have in probably every single lineup or as much of him as I can get. So I'm not going to SGA tonight, but he's a fine pivot option off of the chalk 10K guys, I guess. Anyone else you want to mention?
Nope.
Okay. Uh-oh. I am running late for something. All right. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls against the Spurs. What are your thoughts on them?
First, I'll say I hate this team DFS wise. So I'll just get that out the way. So Caruso, is another guy that I hate when he's chalky, but Levine's gonna be out for a while, and 5,100 against the Spurs. I get it, but definitely not gonna like it. So probably won't go too crazy on that, but I'll at least be somewhere around fill weight there, and then guys like DeRozan, Kobe, and Vooch, even Williams are viable and probably won't be priorities for me, but I'll be fine if they're all in the mix as well.
Yeah, kind of like you. I'm not overly excited about this team. They are all over the place from a production standpoint. Let's see. The Bulls, Alex Caruso's probable. Torrey Craig, probable. Zach LaVine is out still, so that's interesting. Of course, the guys who see the highest increase when LaVine is out are the guys you mentioned, like DeMar DeRozan, Torrey Craig, Kobe White, Vucevic. The sim model likes Vucevic a good bit, so he's someone that I want to have on my radar, but we keep talking about it. We like a lot of bigs on this slate, so it's really just going to depend on if I can actually fit him in on this slate to see how much exposure I actually get. Outside of that, Kobe White's fine. Alex Caruso's fine. Not overly excited about his ownership, but I like the matchup. So I'm really going to trust the DS here when it comes to the exposures, but I do want to make sure I want to try and get a little bit of Vucevic at super low ownership, who's in the same solid matchups as everyone else, but for some reason isn't seeing the same ownership. So I like the spot for him. Anyone else you want to touch on here?
Nope.
Okay. Charlie, yeah, JJJ sucks. It's sad.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, and I could be a little crazy here. I have a feeling he will get better when Ja Morant comes back, and if they actually are able to become contenders of some sort again, it wouldn't shock me if his game does improve a good bit, but we'll see. Charlie, appreciate the support. Really do. Every day. That's awesome. Darius, yes, you are right. Do check out DFS Army. We have a link in the description if you're interested in the pre-lock show, if you're interested in getting news updates in the Discord, where Upper Slide writes a really good write-up of pivots to make with different news that breaks. Feel free to use promo code BDUBB for a 10% discount on that. Definitely helps us continue to grow and develop, and definitely can help your game improve if you're struggling a little bit. Let's see. Jeremy Williams said, do you know why Jared Allen minutes dropped to 23 last game against the Heat? I do not, right off the top. Do you know, Brandon?
Yeah, I would have to look into that. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, don't know. Charlie, why did they
just looking at the score, the final score was 129-96. So I would imagine that was a big part of it.
Yeah, and Jared Allen, just because he has had some injury issues in the past, he's usually the first guy they take out when they're blowing people out or when they're getting blown out. Charlie White has been good lately. Yeah, Kobe White has been decent lately, and he's definitely still a very viable option with LaVine out as well. Next up, we have the Spurs. We have them going up against the Bulls. Who do you like here, Brandon?
First, I'll just say Pop continues to do weird things. So, honestly, it depends on whether he feels like switching his starting lineup again. Right now, if it stays the same, another gross chalky guy will be Chetty. He's been looking decent the last couple games, and it's kind of a nice, cheaper piece to fit in. Vassell's been looking a little bit better too. He's not showing up for me at the moment, but he'd be a guy I'd be okay with if he kind of showed up in the mix. Victor, I always go back and forth on him, but I probably won't force him in. And another guy where if he shows up in the mix, I'd be okay with. Everyone else is it's going to be hard to get to for me.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Pop's been doing weird things. Sohan and Branham were moved out of the starting lineup, and we saw Chetty move in there, and we also saw Vassell. Anyway, he's just been doing weird things with the starting lineup, and so like you mentioned, we got to keep a close eye out for it. Do you know if if Chetty ends up starting again, is that what would make him more viable for you?
Yes, he's only in play for me if he starts. He's 4,700, so I can't play him coming off the bench at 4,700.
Yeah, I agree. Hopefully we get that news. I don't think we'll know it by lock, though, to be honest with you. With Pop, we probably won't know the starting lineup, but the projected starting lineup for now is Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Chetty Osman, Victor, and Collins. So ideally, that would be the case, but, we'll have to wait and see. And then Vassell starting is looking decent at 6,400. Is he someone that you want to keep prioritizing, or what are your thoughts there?
I wouldn't say prioritize, but if he shows up, I would be fine with it because I think that is a decent price tag when he sees his full run. So I don't mind him at all.
Yeah, I agree. Theo said, "What's up? Good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well." Charlie, can you tell me why Victor Wembanyama is not playing a lot? Pop. I mean, that anytime you're dealing with the Spurs, he's done this forever. He just does weird things with the rotation. So It's Pop. Theo said, "Why did the Lakers have to blow out the Pelicans? I was climbing up until that happened." Yeah, same. Things were looking really good.
They were super efficient in primetime LeBron. He was unreal.
I knew it was going to be bad when he shot that super far three. I was like, this is over.
Oh, yeah. I was like, it's one of those nights, huh?
Yeah. I was like, this is just not going to work out. I was like, this is going to be a blowout, and it's not going to be close. And I knew that in the first quarter. It's just like, people are going to be so sad.
And you can tell, just the effort from the Pelicans, it just wasn't there. They just sucked the energy right out of them.
I think, too, and this is a narrative, I think going into Vegas and seeing all the love the Lakers were getting, I think that just drained the energy. I just think the Pelicans knew going in they had no chance in hell.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. We have the Rockets against the Nuggets. Rockets are pretty healthy, unless you count Jock Landale, which I do not. What are you doing with the Rockets, man?
That's going to be another team that's going to be hard to get to. Everybody's priced appropriately. I usually like getting to Schengen, but 9,100, it's going to be kind of tough. So probably won't have anybody here, to be honest.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Fred VanVleet as I feel about Cade. I feel like Cade Cunningham has some decent upside. They're priced decently where they have a little bit of meat on the bones. But because of guys like Murray and guys like Booker, I don't feel the need to go to guys like this. If they show up a little bit in my mix naturally, I'm fine with it, but not going out of my way to force it here. So I'm with you, not planning on playing the Rockets tonight. What about the Nuggets? We have a Nikola Jokic appearance at super low ownership against the Rockets. And then, of course, we have the rest of the Nuggets who are pretty healthy. What are you doing with them?
Is it crazy to say 12K flat is cheap for Jokic because he's been like closer to 1,300. So
Yeah.
I was happy to see his price drop down a bit, and I'm probably gonna have a 5% min on him just because he's like, if there was a human cheat code, it would be him. Like what he does just isn't fair. So I know he's 1,200, but I don't care. I'm gonna put 5% min on him. Jamal Murray is one guy I'm trying to figure out when I want to attack. He did see a little bit more run last game. I think he played 29 minutes. So I'm curious if he reaches across that 30-minute mark, but just not sure if tonight is the night where I want to take that chance. I just don't like this matchup as a whole. So might not go there, but he's definitely kind of been in the back of my mind to where I want to try to get in front of when he's going to start popping off again. And then everybody else is a little priced up for me to like. So really, it's just Jokic for me here.
I'm with you with feeling a little trigger happy when it comes to Jamal Murray. I'm just like, I know this shot is coming.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to wait. I really like some guys, so I'm not going to try to force Murray here. But when we get a nice matchup, I'm going to be all over it, and hopefully no one else is. We'll see.
Yep.
But for me, like you, I'm going to put a 5% min on Jokic and tell the DS to figure it out and just make it work because 12K is a little too cheap for him, and I'm not interested in these other guys. It's possible. Oh, let me look a little bit closer. MPJ, yeah, I don't love. Aaron Gordon at 6,900. Yeah, it's relatively likely I'll have some exposure to Aaron Gordon just because it fits what I usually do with my process. So I'll have some exposure to him. I can almost guarantee that, and I'll also have some exposure to Jokic. Again, there's nothing that really stands out, but the sim model likes them a decent bit, so I'll have exposure to them. Next up, we have a game that I like a lot, the Kings against the Suns. The Kings side is a little bit more bland, but Chris Duarte is listed as questionable. Are you excited about any of the Kings players here?
Not really. The only two I'd be willing to take a shot on is Sabonis and Fox, of course. It's a decent game total and close spread. So typically want to go for the studs in this kind of matchup. All these other secondary pieces are priced appropriately and kind of hard to get to. So you can always make a case for Monk and Herter. They're just a little too streaky for me.
Yeah. It's rare I get to Sabonis, even when he is underneath 10K. That's usually when I'm a little bit more excited to play him, but don't love this spot for him personally. I would like to see De'Aaron Fox show up a little bit just because I like the upside he has. And for what you mentioned, nice game total, close spread. But again, the guard spot is a little tough tonight with guys like Murray and Booker that I'm trying to fit in. So it might be a little bit harder for me to get there, but I do like his low ownership in a good spot. Now, way more interesting team. For those of you that don't know, Kevin Durant is out. Grayson Allen is out. Those are two guys who play big minutes. One of those guys are really high usage players. So definitely a lot of guys who are in interesting spots for the Suns tonight. And then the other guys have been out for a while. Who do you like for the Suns here?
So there was a 10K stud I was referring to, and I think it's obvious now that we're in this spot that it's Devin Booker. Like, I don't know how much I'm going to have of him yet. I'll decide that as we get closer to lock, of course. But I'm going to be over the field on Booker for sure. He's probably my favorite stud on the slate tonight. Without KD, he's just going to look really, really, really good in this matchup. Outside of him, I don't mind getting to Nurk. I probably won't be able to go too high on him just because the center spot is so loaded, but I think this is a decent spot for him as well. Gordon is going to be somebody I want to make sure I'm at least filled way to, maybe a little over. He sees a nice boost when either Booker or KD is out and plays a crap ton of minutes. And then Diop is a guy for sure. I want to make sure I have some too because I would imagine he's going to start with KD out. And then I see you have a like on Okogie. I was going to mention him as kind of like the lower owned guy. I don't mind getting some leverage too as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I like these guys a lot. Quick question. I saw Charlie mention Monk in the chat. Did you give Monk any thought for the Kings?
Yeah, if he shows up in my mix, I'd be fine with it, but he's not a priority for me tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, honestly, I'm a little bit biased when it comes to Monk. I try my best to not have to play him outside of short slates, and so it's not a short slate, so I don't foresee myself getting there. But if I get him to him naturally, it's fine. Theo said LeBron paid them off. If he did, he's going to have to pay a lot of money tomorrow because those guys with Halliburton, they're not going to go easy on him. Charlie said Booker for me tonight, no KD. Yep, I agree, man. Is it crazy for me to fade Booker tonight, especially in single entry contests? Coach Chris, you're thinking, man. Brandon, what do you think?
It's never crazy to fade, especially a expensive stud on a 13 gamer. I wouldn't say it's crazy. I'm for sure, because I'm doing single entry tonight as well, I'm for sure gonna have Booker in mind. So I wouldn't recommend the fade, but you can always make a case for fading any stud on a 13 game slate.
That's exactly what I would say. Code Rez said, I use the DS for hockey and football, but I've never played basketball DFS. Wouldn't even know where to start. Hey, man, check out the pre-lock show. It's at 5:30. We posted on in the Discord. I show what I do in the DS, and Brandon talks through what he does as well. So we can definitely give you a good starting point, and then from there you can decide if you actually want to play or not. But I like it. NBA DFS is not as technical where it's like, okay, hey, put this in the settings. You have to really know what you want and implement that and be okay with it. It's not as much plug and play, which some people like, some people don't. But
yeah, I was gonna say it's as far as setting up the DS is probably the easiest out of all sports. It's just a matter of massaging your exposures to where you want them. That's kind of could be the challenge there.
Yeah. The pro about hockey and football, though, from my understanding, well, I know with football, of hockey, I'm not as certain. You just kind of say like, hey, these are the stacks I want. Give me a mixture, and you're just done. You don't have to do that much. Whereas with football, I do tinker a little bit with, hey, this is my quarterback. I want these receivers, but usually the DS is aligned with me, so I don't have to tinker too much. Pelicans party too hard, yeah. Zion looked very different from what I remember him looking like just last week. I don't know what that man did, but yeah, that was wild.
Having games in Vegas is dangerous, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. Dixon said, is Cole Anthony about to pull a Cam Thomas on us? We're thinking about. I know you mentioned Cole. Code said, when football's over, I'm 100% going to give it a try. I'll follow your advice for it until I get a rhythm. Yeah, no, I think that's a good approach. Theo said Luka's back again tonight. Who's going to slow him down with the big who? Code Rez, no worries, man. Always here to just share the love. For me, I'm going to be heavy on Devin Booker. I am going to be significantly over the field. I will have at least 40%. I can guarantee that. Will he be a core play for me? That's really the only question. Eric Gordon, I like with KD out. We saw last time out when KD was missing, literally only Devin Booker and Eric Gordon took shots. Pretty much everyone else just watched and ran. So if that happens again, I want some exposure to a guy like Eric Gordon. With Josh Okogie more than likely moving into the starting lineup here, I always like Okogie in spots where he has an increasing usage. He does need to be a bit more aggressive. That's gone way down this season, so there's a lot of risk involved with him. But I always like taking my shots on a guy like him who we've seen have some strong performances. What are your thoughts on Keita Bates-Diop?
Not sure how much I want of him yet, but I'm definitely I think he's gonna be a nice value piece. It's a good matchup and decent price tag, so I'm completely fine going there.
Yeah, he will show up naturally in the domination station. At least he is already in my early runs, so I'm not overly concerned about him. He won't be a core play for me or anything like that, but he's a decent value option for sure. And also, in case you all were wondering who sees the highest increase in usage with KD and Allen and Beal off the floor, it is Josh Okogie first with a 7.7% increase in usage, and then it's Eric Gordon with a 5.1% increase in usage. Next up, 2 games left. We have the Clippers against Utah. I feel like we've been on the Clippers for so long. We've just been playing these guys every single slate.
Yep.
But what are you doing here?
Same thing as always. I'm gonna have a nice mixture of Kawhi, James, and George. I'm probably gonna have a little more Harden and Leonard just because they're a little cheaper, but definitely don't mind if you want to get leverage with George since he's the lower owned guy. I'm completely fine with that as well. And I'm even giving Zubac some consideration in this matchup too. 5,500. I think he can smash that price tag against his team. So I'm sure he'll be in my mix as well. So those four guys will kind of be where I'm going.
Dixon saying, let Russ cook. I don't think Russ wants to cook anymore, Dixon. I think Russ is like, let me just breathe and help us get a championship, man.
Taking a back seat.
Yeah, taking a back seat. I was always so confused when Russ moved to the bench. People were more excited to play Russ, and I was just like, I'm not touching him. Like, I refuse to do that. Hopefully there will be some times again where we can play Russ, but nah, not for a bit. I will, again, the sim model likes James Harden, Kawhi, and PG, so I'll have exposure to all of them. Zubac is cheap, so he should show up a decent bit by himself, but I don't care enough to force it. But the matchup is decent against the Jazz, so we're playing the Clippers the same way we have been for the last few weeks here. Next up, we have the Jazz against the Clippers. I'm a bit less excited about the Jazz here, but am I missing something? Jordan Clarkson is questionable, and Kelly O is questionable, so apparently these guys might not even play, so that will make things disgusting. But what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, this team is an easy pass for me. Like, they just look so gross. I can't go here, so just moved on from them.
Yeah. The tough thing is that they play everybody, and they play everybody a little bit. Even when we had, even when guys like Clarkson and Olynyk are out, they still just play everybody just a little bit. And so it's been a little tough for guys to exceed their price tags. And because of that, you see they don't have a 3K guy on the team right now because, I'll say it again, everyone's playing minutes. So I'm not overly excited about it. If Clarkson's out, I think there's a case to be made for playing a guy like Keontae George just because his usage increases. There's a case to be made for playing a guy like Colin Sexton. Usage increases, but it's ugly, and I don't think you have to do it on this slate, but it's a viable play. Anyone else you want to touch on here?
Nope, can't do it.
They're so gross. Like, there's not one game that doesn't want to. There's not one guy on that team that doesn't make me gag a little bit just thinking about them.
Seriously.
But they're fine last fill-in plays. It's okay. It's okay. Jeremy said Booker/Fox over 5 3 points made. This isn't me. Do you have a thought process on this, Brandon?
Was Booker Fox over? Yeah, I'm not that great with like props and stuff like that. I don't get into that too much, but if you're in our Discord, we have some great coaches who are all into props. We have lots of coverage on that stuff.
Yeah, Mutt has been on apparently like this freaking great run of getting all of that stuff right. If I was to answer your question, it would just be a random guess. So trust them. I do know we have really good tools for it, though. Here we have the Proptimizer tool, so you can get that if you're a VIP member. And then I know the Sharp app, which also has a link in the description. People have been crushing with that as well. Sports betting and a lot of that stuff becomes legal here in North Carolina in January, so I might dabble in it a bit more. But for now, I'm not your guy, Jeremy. Sorry. Dixon said, how can you tell if it's a Norm Powell night? I think you're the guy for this question, Brandon. What are your thoughts here?
He's typically only a guy I like to get to if like somebody's out. When everybody's healthy, I don't even think about him. So that's just kind of my thought process with him. Yeah. Or if it's a smaller slate, like if it was like a 2-gamer or a 3-gamer, then of course he'd be more viable. But on a 13-game slate with everybody healthy, I don't give him any thought.
Yeah, to be honest, Dixon, I really rarely ever play Norman Powell until Brandon's like, hey, we should play Norman Powell. I'm like, okay, go play some Norman Powell then. He's just never on my radar, but you got to trust those around you. Last game on the slate, we have the Portland Trailblazers against the Mavs. Trailblazers, Malcolm Brogdon's questionable. DeAndre Ayton's doubtful. Grant is out. So some missing pieces here. Who do you like for the Trailblazers tonight?
Really, it's only two guys at the moment. Simons, the obvious, is crazy. He played 37 minutes in his first game back. I thought for sure he was going to be limited, but he wasn't in. Although he shot poorly, he still did good DFS wise. So if he can get some more shots to fall, he's going to look like a great play tonight, especially if Brog ends up being out. I like him even more. And then Aiden is doubtful, so I think we can go right back to Reith here at 4K. I'll have a decent amount of him tonight as well. And then if Brogdon is out, I'd be willing to consider Sharp because he has been in better form, and it's just crazy the amount of minutes he plays. I think he played the whole second half last game and played like 42 or 44 minutes or something like that. So not a fan of that 8,100 price tag, but just due to the minutes he sees, I think you can make a case for him. And then some of these other guys I think will be a little bit harder to get to.
Yeah. Two things I want to be completely honest about here. One, I haven't watched a Trailblazers game in a long time. So I feel a little off when it comes to some of these guys. Like Scoot, how has he been looking? Like
Still bad.
Yeah, still bad. Still getting in foul trouble, probably. Yeah,
he is.
Yeah. Like I assumed it's the same. And then the second thing I'll admit to is that when it comes to Anthony Simons, I am very biased. He's one of those players who has helped me, who was a part of one of my 100K winning lineups at super low ownership. That's not the case today. But what is the case is he is too cheap for how involved he is on this team. And at 6,800, I'm going to be over the field on this guy every single time. And so will he be a core play? I'm not going to say that yet, but I'll at least be double the field on him. And it's very likely he will be a core play for me today. So those are two things I just wanted to be very transparent with you all about. So you knew some of the biases being involved when you see Simons as a core play for me on this slate. But I think it makes a lot of sense. We know the Mavs are not a great defensive team. The thing that they are good at is that they play a relatively slow pace. But because of Simon's price tag, I do not care about the slow pace here. And he's really the only guy I'm prioritizing here. Did you mention Reith at all? Are you getting him?
Yep. With Aiden doubtful, I'm going right back to him tonight.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I'll trust the DS on this one. I'll just get as much exposure as it gives me, but I don't foresee him being a core play for me on this slate just because of all the other bigs I like. And then lastly, we have the Mavs, a team that's pretty healthy. Of course, Grant Williams is out, but he just plays a lot of minutes, doesn't do that much out there. That does give guys like Exum a boost, though. But what are you doing here with the Mavs?
So Luka is probably going to be another guy where I have at least a 5% min on because this dude is just playing out of his mind right now. Like what he did last game in that first half, like I think he had like 60-something points at halftime, which is just insane. So he's kind of like another one of those human cheat codes that I want to make sure I have some. The blowout concern is real for sure, but I'm still gonna get some of them. And then Exum, he looked good starting last game, 4,500. I don't mind getting to him. It's nice you can play him at point guard and small forward, so he has some nice flexibility. And then one guy I've been kind of going back and forth on is Lively, because with Ayton looking to miss another one, I think this front court's going to be even more softer. So I think this could be like a sneaky spot for Lively here. And 5,400 isn't too bad of a price for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when it comes to Luka, the real question is just how many guys can we pay up for tonight? We have Doncic, we have Jokic, we have Embiid, we have Booker. And then if you're interested in SGA and Tatum, those guys are involved as well. If I can get exposure to Luka, I will. But my priority list is first Booker, then Jokic, then Embiid. Those are the three guys I'm going to make sure I have. If Luka's able to slide in there a little bit, I think it makes a lot of sense. It's a good matchup. We've seen him crush in spots like this before in the past, and it makes total sense. It's just, can he be one more stud that I can play on this slate? That's my only real question here. Chris, said, I'm thinking Luka over Booker tonight. And again, that's another good thought process. If you don't agree with the way I'm ranking them, then you swap it. And Luka comes in at really low ownership. So I don't think that's a crazy pivot. Do you think that's a bad pivot, Brandon?
No, I'll never, like, if you want to make a lower owned pivot to somebody with the ceiling that Luka has, I'm always okay with that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Similar thought process. I need to, and then he said Brogdon needs to sit his ass down and chill.
I agree.
I don't disagree. I would honestly probably have a more Simons than Murray, even in that spot, if Brogdon did end up being out. I love that guy so much.
Yeah.
Theo said if we get more value, we can get Luka and Booker. You're not wrong, but that's a big if. That's a big if. Yeah, I agree, Dixon. I don't think you're wrong. So yeah, that's pretty much this slate. I think for me, interesting final 3 games. I like this Warriors Thunder game, and then I'll be over the field in the first 4 games as well. Outside of that, these other games I can kind of just write off for myself at least. But what are your kind of like lasting end of the show kind of thoughts, Brandon?
Really is just keeping an eye on. We still have some pretty big Q tags out there, so just keeping an eye out on there. And then glad we got that trade news earlier, so I'll be curious once we kind of get updated with things. Like I said, I know DeJounte is going to pop big time for me now, and I'm sure Bog as well. So that side of the ball, I'll be a little more interested in. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens with the rest of the news.
It's a 13-game slate. That's really just an 8 to 9 game slate for me, and so I am totally fine when that happens. And so I wish you all nothing but the best of luck. I look forward to hopefully seeing most of you on the pre-lock show later today at 5:30 p.m. And if not, we will see you all on Monday. Have a good one, guys. Peace out.